Hello everybody and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol character spotlight, and today we are taking a look at what is probably one of the highest skill ceiling models in this game, and that is of course Gwen Stacy Ghost Spider, or commonly referred to as Spider-Gwen. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get right into her character card here. So we're gonna start out with her defensive line here. She's got 333. So relatively standard there, nothing standing out. 5 health, she's a 3 threat, she's got a long move, and she is size 2. Then we're going to go into her attacks. So first, she's got 3 attacks, which is quite impressive for a 3 threat actually. But starting out, she's going to have the Spider Technique. So this is a range to 4 dice builder. So she's going to build power equal to the damage dealt, but this has 2 special rules with it. So the first one is if this character has already attacked the target character during its activation this turn, you add 3 dice to this attack roll. Note that it doesn't specify which attack you used, so this could have been any of your other attacks first, and then your second attack being the Spider Technique being 7 dice. So that's really, really good. A 7 dice builder on a 3 threat is pretty cool. It just requires you to make another attack first. And then the other rule text here is if this character has advanced or been placed during its activation this turn, after this attack is resolved, it may advance long. So what's really interesting about that one there, and of course, free long advance after a builder is fantastic. She's great at doing kind of hit and run style movements. She can move into range 2 of someone, punch someone, and then either run back to safety or run to a different point or whatever she needs to do. And we'll talk about some of the things you can do with that in a minute, but really interesting that it mentions being placed here because she doesn't actually have any way of placing herself, and we'll also kind of talk about some of the ways you can play with that in a bit as well. But yeah, going on to her next attack, this is also a 4 dice gainer this time, and it's going to be range 4. It's an impact webbing. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it with Spider Technique, but all of her attacks are physical, so we're not going to bother mentioning that too much. But anyways, Impact Webbing is a 4 dice gainer at range 4. It's got a wild push. If the target character is size 2 or less before damage is dealt, you may push them away small. So that's been on a few of the Web Warrior models, and yeah, makes sense. It's a solid trigger to have. On 4 dice, it's not the most consistent thing in the world, but when you do get it, it's real nice. And having that versatility between a gainer or a builder is really, really nice for Gwen, so that's pretty good. Next, she has Freestyle Beatdown. This is her Spender attack, and it's going to be range 2, so the same as her Spider Technique. It's going to throw 6 dice, which is not bad, and it's going to cost her 3 power if the stack deals damage, and the target character is size 3 or less. After the attack is resolved, the target character may be thrown away small. So that's not bad. We're already seeing that she's kind of got a theme with some of her attacks here. She's got a little bit of control on both her impact webbing and her freestyle beatdown, and this one's for size 3, so you can affect models that are a little bigger than you could with the impact webbing. A lot of the times when I decide, I mean, it's not really her main role, but when I decide Gwen needs to actually go and kill something and she's got the power, then you can do a freestyle beatdown into a Spider Technique to throw 6 and then 7 dice, and of course if you get the throw, maybe a little extra damage there. Just got to be careful because it is a throw away, so obviously if you're planning to double tap them, you don't want to throw them out of your range too, because following up with the Spider Technique is much more powerful than the impact webbing when it's a second attack. So things to keep in mind with that, but very versatile, very powerful. And yeah, I mean, having a throw, I mean, there is a condition, it's on damage, but it's a 6 dicer, so that's relatively consistent against, not super bulky models. But yeah, that's not bad at all. Going into her abilities here is where she becomes really, really powerful. So she has only 2 superpowers, 3 if you count Wall Crawler, but we're not going to get into that. So the first one here is Webline. This is her active superpower. This is going to cost her 2 power. She's going to push an enemy character within range 4 and line of sight towards her small. A character can be pushed by this superpower only once per turn. So this is really, really powerful. There's a lot of interactions with this that you can do, but notably, she can use this superpower more than once per turn, so she can target multiple models very, very easily, and it is not size restricted. So in one turn, this long moving model can run into your opponent's team with a long move, pull, you know, two, three models off of points, preferably usually models that have already activated. Also pull them into positions where the rest of your team is going to be able to get to and punch them easier. And then she can choose to punch them with her spider technique. Sure, it's only a four dicer, but who cares whether it actually does damage or not? Because now she's going to get another long move and she's going to run the heck away. So she can do a lot of damage and then retreat to safety or, you know, scoring positions relatively easily. And yeah, she can do some really big damage with this. Obviously not damage in the sense of, you know, dealing out wounds and dazing or KOing characters, but in terms of destroying your opponent's game plan, pulling them all off of their points, bringing them into positions where your other models will be able to do actual damage to them, and really just rearranging the board in a turn if she wants to. Speaking of rearranging the board, her other ability here is a reactive ability. It also costs her 2 power, and it is called Lifesaver. When an enemy character targets another allied character with an attack that is within this character's line of sight and range 4, you may use this superpower. You push the targeted allied character towards yourself small. If at the end of this push they are now outside of the attack's range or line of sight, note that it does not recheck stealth, the attack ends. If it is the attacker's activation and the attack did not target multiple characters, they may make another action. This superpower can only be used once per turn. So this is really, really powerful. Do note the once per turn, that's really, really important here. But this is basically escort to safety, but better, because I think escort to safety is range 3, as a superpower. And that is really, really powerful when you're basically getting the effect of a tactics card that is considered quite good for 2 power on a 3 threat model that already has a lot of other powerful things, like Webline being a really powerful ability that we already talked about, kind of how that can impact the board. And then also just randomly, she has the potential to kind of hit well above her weight if she wants to. With 3 power, she can throw 13 dice in a turn. So she's honestly not as kind of pillow-fisted as a lot of people assume she is when they see kind of all of these other things that she can do. But also all of these other things that she can do is why she's considered so powerful, because Webline and Lifesaver are some of the best superpowers in the entire game. So they're both incredibly powerful. Another thing worth mentioning with Webline, and a similar ruling recently came out for Cosmic Ghost Rider, and you know she's good when we're comparing her to Cosmic Ghost Rider, of basically if a character plays Indomitable or does like Emma's kind of Mind Shield, I think it's called, ability where they prevent you from pushing them. The wording on this is very specific. A character can be pushed by this superpower only once per turn, not targeted. So you are very, very capable of saying, well, you burned Indomitable, but I still have power, so I'm going to try again. And that can be really good. Of course, you do have to still pay the power when they use Indomitable or Mind Shield or anything like that. But if you have the power to try it again, you can just do it again. And with something like Mind Shield, you can end up in this kind of situation where you and their you know Emma model is basically just seeing which one is willing to stop paying first or which one has more power if it comes down to it. Which can be a really fun little interaction that I've actually run into a couple times with Gwen. So super powerful kit. I can't stress this enough. And because of the way these abilities work, because they're both very tight positioning abilities, you know, making sure you're going to be in range when you place Gwen, not just of the models that you want to protect right away, but also where you're kind of planning to leave your models as the round goes on, to be able to get the most value out of those lifesavers, knowing which attacks to lifesaver, because it is only once per turn, that's really, really, you know, something that you have to play the game a lot and you have to play the model a lot to really know when the best times to do those sorts of things are going to be. And then same for Webline, knowing how to get the full value out of Webline is another thing where it's really, really easy to kind of take this and be like, okay, well, obviously turn 1, I'm going to long move up, I'm going to impact webbing you, that's going to gain me 1 power, then I'm going to pull you off of a point. That's an easy one, that kind of, you know, right out the gate, that can give you a nice early lead. But as you go further into the game, knowing how much power to spend on web lines versus how much to save for Lifesaver, which models you should be pulling and when and where and how, those sorts of things can really all stack up to make this one of the most, in my opinion, skill ceiling models in the game. I'm of the belief that this is one of those models that really pushes the idea of skill gap being a big deal in this game between, a top level tournament player versus somebody just starting the game. It's models like this that kind of push that top level tournament player to be like, okay, this is why they're going to be able to win much more consistently. And of course, that's true of most games, but I think this is one of the models that really pushes that point. So, and that's just kind of what I mean when I say high skill ceiling of, this model has so many different layers of how well you can play it, and it's a really well designed model, I think, in that sense. And then one of the things that makes her difficult as well is that you notice there's absolutely no defensive tech for herself here. She can protect allies all day long, but she has nothing. She is 333 with 5 health. She's basically tied, if I remember correctly. I don't remember with who, but she's arguably the worst defensive 3 threat in the game with 5 stamina and 3 defense on everything with no rerolls, no other tech of any sort. She goes down very, very fast. So you really got to know how to keep her alive by taking advantage of stuff like spider technique, giving you an extra move, or just be willing to move twice. And then, being careful with your web lines, because when you pull an enemy towards you, obviously now they're going to be closer to you. So one thing that a lot of people will do is stuff like they'll move forward, pull the enemies towards them, but away from where they were before, and then they move back. So now the enemies are kind of in this weird, they were actually pushed away from your starting position sort of thing. So stuff like that can really help kind of make the most out of those abilities while keeping her alive a little bit. So just I can't stress enough how much skill goes into properly playing this model, and I'm going to be the first to admit that I haven't fully unlocked what she's capable of, because there are definitely people who play this model much better than I do, and I'm just going to try and do her as much justice as I can here. So going into affiliations, Gwen is only part of one affiliation, and that is the Web Warriors affiliation. Now, I'm going to be upfront here. As far as I'm aware, and maybe there's a couple Web Warrior players out there who disagree with me, but she's basically an auto include in this affiliation. You pick your leader, and then you pick Gwen, and that's it. From there, obviously build your list to be whatever you want it to be, but she's pretty much an auto include here because she's just so powerful, and having her as an affiliated model, and she really plays to the Web Warriors game plan of kind of being able to move around the board really quickly and be able to grab points, run away if they need to. She can pull people, out of positions, because Web Warriors at the end of the day are usually played as a more objective focused team. But let's talk about kind of some of the specific synergies she gets. I mean, with Miles, it's very, very straightforward. She gets the defensive reroll, which is infinitely better than the absolutely zero defensive tech she has otherwise. So that's great, quite good with her. In addition, I mean, like I mentioned, being able to pull opponents in for your own models to then come hit them. Miles plays pretty well with that. You can pull people in to get Miles in range of Venom Blast if maybe, he has the power to blast or swing, but not both. You can do that to make sure he's got the Venom Blast online. Alternatively, if Miles is sitting on a lot of power and you want to be able to punch things, but you want to be able to do it somewhat safe, you don't want to go too close to your opponent, she can kind of pull things in, preferably things that have already activated in this case, and then next activation, you have Miles kind of go in, he swings in, and he can do his webline kicks and get those throw triggers, which if you're able to swing, that helps a lot with the consistency there. And then throw them back away. So that risk we talked about of pulling them closer to her, it can be kind of mitigated by a model like Miles. So that's really, really good there. And yeah, that's one of the models that it just as a model really works well with her, but also the leadership is quite good. Talking about Amazing Spider-Man here, for similar reasons, there's kind of a synergy between the two characters, just in the sense of, she can help keep him alive, and he's already a very obnoxious model to kill sometimes, so that's really, really good. But then also his leadership can also be really interesting with her because of that sort of, that thing we talked about where you can move up the board, pull your opponent's models back kind of towards their own deployment line, and then before you choose to punch them and run away, you can actually then give them slow conditions, which is really, really rude. Or if you've already given them slow conditions, you can teleport them even further away, and then you run away. So you can do some really rude things with that because of course now not only have you pulled them out of position, but you've also made it even harder for them to come back into position or to get to your team. So I think there's a lot of cool synergies with that leadership there as well. Although generally speaking, I think most Web Warrior players prefer the Miles leadership just for the little bit of defensive consistency there. As far as other affiliations are concerned, and if you're wondering, we didn't go over tactics cards this video because she doesn't actually have any tactics cards where she is a named member of the card. Although I do think she synergizes quite well with the Web Warriors one. Spider Tracker helps keep her alive by allowing her to move out of danger when it approaches her. And All Webbed Up is just a really, really powerful card that can really make her hit like a truck, which is quite funny when your kind of support model can suddenly come in and just throw out what 17 dice if she really wants, which is absurd. So she can hit like a truck under that card, and I also find a lot of the times, because she's a long mover and just kind of the way she tends to play, at least from my own experience, she's often kind of holding on to enough extra power that she's willing to pay for that a lot of the time, and she's very capable of being in a good position to pay for that. So that's worth considering. But anyways, talking more from a broad sense, I think Gwen is a very splashable model, and I just kind of want to talk briefly about some of the places where I think she could be splashed reasonably well. So first off, I'll just mention that I do personally run her in my Avengers list because I think she's a fantastic model that really takes the kind of bodyguard brick that I personally play up to 11. Not only am I going to be able to bodyguard this, that, and the other thing, and a fun thing you can do is you can lifesaver someone into bodyguard range. So you pull them back, and maybe you weren't able to get them out of range of the attack, but now one of your bodyguard models can take the hit for them when they were out of range before. So that's a fun little thing that you can do there. And that's one of the reasons why I run her there. I also really like her under Steve 1. Her superpowers only costing 1 is really, really good for kind of that mid game when she might be struggling to gain power if your opponent hasn't been punching her at all. And then on top of that, because like I mentioned, she is a very squishy model, so if your opponent decides to punch her, sometimes she just dies. Having kind of bodyguard models like Luke Cage with his taunt or Heroes for Hire, and Captain America with his actual bodyguard ability can be really, really good to keep her in the game a little bit longer. Similarly, I think she can be quite obnoxious under something like Sam Spam. She kind of fits the bill being a 3 threat, and while not necessarily bulky herself, which is typically what Sam likes to do with Sam Spam, is the bulkier threes, she can make it really, really obnoxious to heal your other models. So she kind of becomes priority number 1, and then when they do take her down, you're going to be able to move your other models and heal them. So that kind of works out as well. It's a combination that I haven't played with that much myself, but I do intend to start playing more Sam in the near future and try that out for sure because I think it would be a lot of fun. Going away from Avengers though, I do think she's splashable in a lot of places. I mean, even something like Guardians, the dice consistency, if she's one of the ones you want to consider giving the Wing It token to, would be nice. But I think more so, she's just a very kind of self-sufficient, generically good model that can kind of work under most leaderships without any real complaints. I don't think there's anything that she actively dislikes. The power leaderships are going to be nice for her because they do help keep her stuff online, especially in the early to mid game before she has a lot of power. So that can be really, really nice. She can do a lot of stuff with that, which is cool. I think one of the fun synergies that I've seen played, I haven't gotten an opportunity to try myself, is actually Midnight Suns, the bump in the night leadership, allowing you to place yourself for 1 power instead of having to do a move action sometimes if the range 1 place is enough for you. That has a really cool synergy with Gwen because it turns on. I'm just gonna go ahead and pull up Blade's leadership here just so anyone can see it. But what that does is that turns on the long move off of her spider technique. So that can do some really, really interesting things because all of a sudden you have the ability to get the long move and get the extra damage at the same time. So what you could do is you could punch someone, move maybe to the other side of them because you do need the extra, or you needed to punch the same target to get the extra dice, punch them again, and now this punch was a 7 dice punch and you still get the long move because you've still placed yourself this activation. It also allows her to punch two targets and move twice, which I mean they're only four dicers, but if you can do it under, well, you can't do it under all webbed up, but if you can do it with anything, making your hits a little harder, or maybe your enemies have been lit on fire, that could be really, really good. So it's a cool little synergy with the leadership there that I've seen played around with a bit, and it can be really neat. Some of the stuff she can do with that. Personally, one of the things that I like is if she goes, goes up to go punch someone with her spender, she can spender them, and then if she can throw them, but like no matter what she does, they'd be a little bit out of that range too. It is a small throw, so if they're base to base with you, that would still take them out of the range too. Um, she could use that bump to get back into range. I'm not 100% sure if the measurement works without them still having to be thrown at like as tight of an angle as possible or into a piece of terrain that was just out of the range too. But it definitely helps. So that could be kind of a cool thing is you spend her, then you bump, so then you can build her and you still get that 13 dice without having to, be super cautious about where you're throwing them. So that's a cool little synergy there that I've always really liked in the Midnight Suns. So yeah, going back into just kind of general characters and stuff. Models that are already kind of obnoxious to take down can be really, really rude under her because she can just keep continuously, pull stuff out of range and force your opponent to waste move actions on getting to them. So that can be really, really good. Particularly models that have their way of getting back into the fight as well. If you're gonna, pull your model back and force your opponent to waste move actions coming to you, you don't want to then have to waste your own move actions to get back to where you want to be. So if you have characters that have their own movement abilities, I mean, Crimson Dynamo is a fantastic example of this actually, who has his little jet thrusters. He can basically gamma leap himself. So she could pull him to safety, but maybe now he's off of a point and that doesn't feel great. So he can then on his turn, once the danger has passed, he can you know use his gamma leap to jump back forward back onto his point or into a better position to do beams or whatever he wants. And I think that applies to a lot of the types of models she might have a good time playing with. I mean, I already mentioned Sam Wilson. He's got a charge, so obviously that's something that's good for him. And I could see that being true of just kind of any model that you kind of would have a reason to, maybe if I can keep them alive one more turn, it'll be a big deal. That can also apply to high threats as well because it doesn't have a size restriction on it. So stuff like Ghost Rider or Hulk, even, those could benefit a lot from something like that. So yeah, just kind of in summary, Gwen at the end of the day is a extremely powerful model in the hands of a player who knows how to use her. And like I said, I'm trying to do her as much justice as I can because I know she's an incredibly powerful model and I've seen her do incredible things, but I don't claim to be, the best player in the world, especially not when it comes to playing Gwen specifically. I have been playing her lately and she's been doing a lot of work for me, but there's always more ways to improve with a model like this because she's just so versatile and so powerful in the right player's hands. And yeah, I really can't stress that point enough. But I do think she's an amazing model. She's really, really fun to play as well. Once you kind of start learning how her different things can interact with each other, she can be a really, really fun model to learn how to play and to play properly. And again, I say play properly as kind of a little asterisk there of I still haven't fully unlocked her myself, but she's a great model and she's a ton of fun. So I do recommend trying her out. Try splashing her in whatever list you're running right now and just see how she does for you because I really think she can go into pretty much any affiliation. I think she prefers the power ones a little bit more versus kind of the punchy ones. But that said, keeping your punchy models alive is very important. So she can do that too. And if you're consistently having problems of you're trying to punch but your opponent's scoring too fast, she can help slow that down as well. So there's a lot of different ways she can be effective and she can play a lot of different niches. I've had people in my local scene try to run her as a more attrition piece, web lining aggressively just to pull things into range to be punched more. She's going to be doing those freestyle beatdowns as much as she can. She's going to be double tapping with spider technique if she has to get that extra dice. Um, I've definitely seen her played like that a few times, and I've seen her do work in that role as well. So she can do a lot in a lot of different roles. But yeah, she's a really powerful model, and I strongly encourage anyone who hasn't already gotten a chance to give her a spin to try her out because she's so much fun. And yeah, I don't think there's too much more I can say about that without just kind of repeating what I've already said. So I think at that point we're gonna start wrapping the video up here. Let me know down below, guys, what your kind of Gwen experiences are. Do you play the model a lot? Do you want to play the model more? Where do you play her? Where's she seen the most success for you? Are there synergies and combos that I didn't mention here that you want to bring to light? Let me know down below. I would love to see what you guys think. But as far as my opinions are concerned, that's going to wrap up this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We do character spotlights like these every Wednesday and battle reports on Sunday. So if you're a fan of MZP, there is tons of content to go around. But yeah, that's all I got. So until next time, everybody, have a great day. Peace.